Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. Before we get started today, I wanted to remind you that The Blaze has a number of great documentaries, and the most recent one is The Cover Up. It's talking all about COVID and Anthony Fauci and everything that went on through the pandemic industrial complex. If you join Blaze TV, in addition to supporting this show and everything we do here, you'll get access to all of the amazing content, including The Cover Up. They're on episode 5 right now, but if you want to catch up, get all those previous episodes and see the newest one, you can head over to faucicoverup.com/Auron. And you can get $20 off your subscription when you do that. That's faucicoverup.com/Auron. All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking about a few different stories. You may have heard, but there was, for a few hours at least, yesterday, the Trump administration decided that they were going to try to slip in something with their new emergency funding guidelines, FEMA funds, and these different disaster relief funds. We're going to get additional restrictions on how they were going to work. And they tended to focus on two things. One of them is ending DEI, which is fantastic. Of course, we want to end DEI. We want to end this undue discrimination towards Americans, especially white Americans. But also in these new guidelines were restrictions on how you could feel about Israel, the way that different cities could interact, if they could boycott, if they could choose to do business or not, with not just the state of Israel, but also businesses from Israel. So we're going to be diving into the language about that. The Trump administration did eventually roll that back. Maybe we're going to dive into the discussion there a little more. Also, Jim Acosta's this terrible thing on where he was trying to use the dead child of a set of parents to try to do some digital necromancy and extort people about over kind of gun rights and their feelings on the ability for someone to own a firearm. That was, of course, ghoulish itself, but it opens up a whole deep, dark pool of kind of what can happen with AI. Right now, the technology is not good enough, I think, to fool most people, at least when it comes to their loved ones. But one day it will be, and the implications of that are rather dark. So we're going to dive into both of those stories, but let's begin with the disaster relief efforts. So let me bring this up real quick. All right. So as you can see here, these are the some of the new guidelines that the Trump administration has issued. Now, if you're not paying attention to every one of these back and forth that occur in different policy and the way that the Trump administration has rolled things out, we've seen this a few times, especially when it came to the Trump administration's attempt to create carve outs with deportations a little bit ago. Obviously, we are looking for large scale deportations, and one of the critical ways to do that in order to bring safety and order and law and order into the United States is to end the ability of employers to shelter illegal immigrants, hire illegal immigrants. And the Trump administration had been doing some raids on a few employers, which was a big step. It's one thing, don't get me wrong, go after the gang members first, get the worst criminals first. Absolutely. That's a winning strategy. It's good optically. It makes sense to ramp up the situation. Obviously, you don't have all the officers you need and all the detention facilities you need. So you have to be more particular early on when you're trying to do this. But over time, if you're going to get serious, if you're really going to move people in large droves, you have to go after the employers because, of course, there are a number of illegal immigrants who are criminals. I mean, they're all criminals by definition. That's what illegal immigrant means. But there are those who have committed additional violent crimes, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, gang violence and activity, all these things. You can go after them first. But if you want to move the vast majority of immigrants out of the country, what you need to do is get rid of the infrastructure that basically incentivizes them to be here. A lot of people laughed at the idea of self-deportations from Republicans in the past, but this is a very real thing, and we're already starting to see it to some extent. The almost complete stop of illegal immigration into the country by the Trump administration at the border at this point is huge. Again, I do not want to undersell this. Please understand, we're going to be criticizing the Trump administration at a decent amount in this stream, but I want to tell you they are doing good things. We have seen a huge drop in the number of people who are crossing the border in the United States. I think it's one of the lowest numbers we've seen since like the 1960s. It's amazing compared to the Biden administration that was letting in 8+ million people during their administration. Obviously, this is a drastic change, and it can't be undersold how important that is. It's a very serious effort to stop the bleeding, for which I am grateful. However, we saw that the Trump administration attempted to then work in this thing after employers started to get a little angry about this. Maybe some people started whispering in Trump's ear. We started to see the Trump administration change its guidelines to say, well, actually, we might be protecting farmers and hospitality workers. We'll be selective with how we're doing these deportations. There was a large outcry from the community, and these guidelines were ultimately changed. So we've seen this a number of times where the Trump administration will kind of come out with a policy. It doesn't jive with what people feel like is a true definition of America First, is really serving our interests, is ultimately supporting the people of the United States as it should. And so instead, there's a large outcry, and the Trump administration kind of rolls it back quietly. A lot of people will get angry about that to say, oh, well, they should just do the right thing from the beginning. I understand what you're saying, but ultimately, this is for better or worse, kind of the ultimate populism, right? If they step out of line, they put out some kind of policy that ultimately is going to hurt America or is out of line with the American First ideology. You have a large blowback. I always, make this joke on Twitter, always chimp, right? Like always get out there and make your voice known, be loud. People in administration are listening. There are a lot of people who are tuned into what's going on, what the public wants. They're very sensitive to the base and what they're trying to say in certain areas. And so if you get out there ahead of these things and make a lot of noise, they will often change. Now, the question is always, did they really change or did they paperwork change, right? And that's what we're going to be investigating today, because they can say, oh, well, we got rid of the guideline, and it's fantastic that they got rid of the guideline. But ultimately, are you still following it somewhere? Like, is someone saying, okay, yeah, technically we don't have it written down, but like wink, wink, nod, nod. We obviously should be avoiding these. We're not going to put a lot of pressure on farmers. We're not going to put a lot of pressure on hotels. And this is always the concern, right? Just because you said you rolled back the policy, does that mean it's actually happening? So let's take a look at what they were trying to put into the guidelines when it comes to disaster relief. Now, I want to make this clear. This one's a little personal for me, okay? And this one's personal for me because I live in South Florida. I live in a community that has been hit by several hurricanes over the last 5 to 8 years, and it's been devastating. A lot of people have lost their homes. A lot of people have lost loved ones. A lot of people have had their lives ruined by these natural disasters. I have been in situations where I have had to, basically go through chest high water to my house. Don't have a roof for 6 months. Very serious situations. No power for a month. You're in pretty bad straits, right? Like civilization falls away really quickly when natural disasters strike. And I know North Carolina also experienced this and famously did not receive the type of response that a lot of people felt was due to it. So disaster relief is something I have experienced very directly. I know what it's like to desperately be looking for the guy who can, get your dog some food or, get you some gasoline, make sure that you could get a generator to the house and, run a refrigerator for a few days, this kind of thing. I have experienced this firsthand and have done so several times. I have been on the ground reporting, interviewing FEMA workers, talking to people who have lost their homes as a journalist in my area. So again, I've seen all of this upfront firsthand. And so it really matters. Now, a lot of people might say, well, maybe that's not the government's job. Maybe that's not the federal government, whatever. We'll have that debate later. The point is, if there's a few things that the government is really expected to do by most people, it's handle things like a giant natural disaster, to be involved at that time. So let's take a look at the restrictions that they were trying to put on disaster relief funding. All right. It says recipients must comply with all applicable federal anti-discrimination laws material to the government's payments decisions for purposes of 31 USC, subsection, whatever. So what they're saying, if you want to get the funding, you need to subscribe to anti-discrimination laws. Now, this is the same mechanism that is, of course, used for like civil rights restrictions, right? We can't technically force you to do some of this stuff. However, we're going to hold funding hostage until you do. The left has done this for many, many decades when it comes to all kinds of civil rights law. The Trump administration is trying to, in theory, use it the other way. Now, I have a pretty serious problems with the Civil Rights Act in its current incarnation and everything that has come after the 1965 or 64 Civil Rights Act. Whatever you feel, however you feel ultimately about the original intent of the law, I think a lot of people have positive understandings of what the law was supposed to do and don't like the problem that the law was intended to solve. But ultimately, whatever it was has become this giant leviathan that reaches into a lot of people's everyday life. And so I ultimately think that we're better off dismantling big parts of it rather than we are trying to use it for our own purposes. However, this is the way that Trump administration is going with it, and at least it's going the direction of trying to use it for our own purposes in theory, right? So I'm not initially 100% against this, even though I don't like the overall architecture of what's going on here. So, what is it defining these anti-discrimination laws as? What does that look like? Number one, definitions as used in this clause. A, DEI means diversity, equity, and inclusion. B, DEIA means diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So these are kind of the basic things that they're looking out for. They recognize that this DEI framework is being used to discriminate against Americans, usually white Americans, though sometimes others like Asians. But those are the main group being All right, guys. Hopefully we're back there. Can everyone hear me? Chat, let me know if you can hear me, if I am back for you here. Unfortunately, we have a pretty bad storm in the area, and so uh, internet was down, but we are back. Looks like we're back. Okay, so people are saying they can hear me. The excitement of live streaming, guys. You never know what's going to happen. Really bad thunderstorms in Florida on the afternoon is nothing new. So not surprising. Kind of amazing. It's the first time that ever has happened like that, but glad we're back. All right. So, like I was saying, glad to see the anti-DEI uh, allowance in here, right? We want to make sure that DEI is not used to discriminate against white Americans or other Americans in the United States. And we're saying you cannot discriminate against these groups if you do in this manner. You can't use this DEI framework. They're not going to name the group, obviously. We all kind of know, but we're not allowed to say, I guess. So we have this framework and we make sure that you cannot discriminate against these groups in this manner. Okay, fine. That again, I am totally okay. I totally understand why we're doing this way, right? I don't like withholding disaster funding. I think it's really critical in these important situations. However, I do understand, that these are pain points, and the pain points allow you to change what's going on in these situations. They allow you to bring pressure against those that otherwise would be discriminating against your allies. And so sometimes you got to play hardball, and that's just how it is with the disaster funding here. Then we get to D here, and it says discriminatory prohibited boycott means refusing to deal, cutting commercial relations or otherwise limiting commercial relations to specifically with Israeli companies or with companies doing business in or with Israel or authorized or licensed by or organized under the laws of Israel to do business. So there's this, BDS movement, as it's often called, the boycott, divest, and sanction movement against Israel. A lot of people, especially on the left, for a long time have opposed Israel. They don't like the way that they're doing things. They've had a organized movement to try to stop people from ultimately putting their money in, that kind of thing, to Israel. And so the whole movement is basically like this protest against Israel through a lot of these blue cities or even states. They'll draft these large policies. Now, conversely, there are a lot of states across the United States, mostly red states, who have anti-BDS decisions that they make. They have these requirements at the state level that everyone who's going to do business with the state has to basically be willing to also do business with Israel. This is unfortunately also something that my governor Ron DeSantis put into legislation here in Florida. So this is the law in Florida as well. Now, the way that this is worded is very concerning, right? You might say, but Auron, I thought we were just we're fine using, this law to push back against bad things that the left is doing, right? And the BDS movement, this is a bunch of radical leftists. They hate you, they hate your guts, they hate Christians, they hate the right, they hate conservatives. So who cares, right? Put it in there, do some damage to them. I hear you. So I want a few things first. A lot of people will, of course, say, well, if you don't want the United States making regulations against, what citizens can do in relation to a foreign government, specifically Israel here, then you're like supporting the people who ultimately, push that stuff. You're supporting like terrorists. You're supporting Hamas. You're pro-Palestinian. You're pro-leftist. All this kind of stuff. And I understand what they're saying because the BDS guys, for the most part, hate my guts, right? Like these are not people who ultimately are going to be on my side. They don't like me politically. They don't like me personally. They don't like where I come from. They don't like my people. They don't like my religion. They don't like conservatives. So I get it. Like, right, by all measures, these are political enemies for the most part, right? So I understand the point of, oh, well, why wouldn't you want to hurt these people? It's another win against the left. Just get in there and do it. However, I do think it matters, right? There are lots of ways that we can hurt the left, and I'm on board with hurting the left, right? Like I am the guy, whereas politics is about rewarding your friends and punishing your enemies, right? Like this is one of the phrases I repeat over and over and over again. So I got into this with Will Chamberlain on Twitter. He's a guy who is a very prominent political commentator. He's on the NatCon podcast. He does a lot of shows up on like Tim Pool and stuff a lot. He's been on the show multiple times. I like Will. However, he's saying, oh, well, you just have to do business this way. This is just coalitional politics. And if you want to punish the left, if you want to get on board with like stopping DEI, you just also have to be on board with stopping the BDS stuff. You have to be on board with regulating whether or not Americans can choose to boycott a foreign government or not. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy this argument, and I don't buy it for several reasons. Okay. The reason that I'm okay with using the DEI stuff as a wedge, the reason I'm willing to say I will punish leftist cities for implementing DEI is it directly discriminates against American citizens. It is active discrimination against Americans in the United States by governments in the United States. We cannot allow this. We cannot allow a large, sprawling, anti-white structure to attack Americans, often other races as well, like Asians. But you cannot allow this tool of primarily anti-white hate to be something that is regularly deployed by blue cities across the nation, right? Totally on board with this. I am totally fine with using this. Will said, oh, well, we can't unilaterally disarm. The left uses funding like this all the time to cut off funding to right-wing organizations and demand that they do certain things, and we can't write that off. And I agree 100%. I am not for unilateral disarmament. I am on board with telling people, no, you cannot implement this DEI framework and continue to receive funding from the federal government. That makes perfect sense, and I'm on board with that tactic. However, that is not what's happening here, right? What's happening here is we are also packaging in with the anti-DEI stuff the idea that also you can't make a choice as to whether or not you want to support a foreign government. Because that's what the government of Israel is. It's a foreign government, right? And you have the right as an American citizen to choose whether or not you support a foreign government. Now, again, I don't like the people who are running a lot of these BDS movements. I know they don't care about me. I know they hate me. So this is not me like solidarity with these guys. They're on my side. A lot of people make this mistake. They don't like something Israel's doing. They're like, oh, well, that means we have to back the base Muslims, right? Like they're our friends now, or we have to try to team up with all the leftists who who have been screaming about Israel. No, no, we don't actually at all. I don't have to pick sides between awful people. I actually don't have to do that, right? I'm sorry. Like I can oppose backing Ukraine and funding Ukraine without being pro Russia or pro Putin, right? I know the classic dynamic is if two sides are fighting, you've got to choose one side. But I don't have to choose Israel and Palestine. I don't have to choose Ukraine or Russia. I don't have to do that because I'm an American. And so what I'm going to do each and every time is put America first. That's going to be the guiding light. My nation, my people, what is good for us as a community, as a nation, what is good for the people next to me, my neighbor, my family, my community, my state, my country. That's what's going to guide me. Not, oh, well, one side says this, so I have to be on the other side. No, I'm on America's side. I'm on America's side every time. And I hope that seems consistent to everybody. I hope if there's one thing you can see from my repeated positions that I take, I do my best. Nobody's perfect. I'll make mistakes. But the positions I take repeatedly, I put all of my effort forward in trying to create a scenario in which it's clear that I am trying to choose the good of America first. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about an economic policy. Maybe I'm wrong about some government policy. But my motivation, I hope, always is clearly putting America first. And so I do not have to choose between like leftists who hate me or Palestinians that probably hate me or jihadis somewhere in the Middle East, and Israel. I don't have to choose between those. I don't have to choose because none of these people are on my side. I'm on America's side, right? Period. That's it, right? And so when I look at this legislation, I am very worried. And when I'm told that I have to package support for a foreign government with opposition to anti-white policies, I have to do that. We just can't advance anti-DEI stuff unless we also advance this, like you have to support Israel, you have to do business with Israel stuff. No, I don't have to do that. And again, this is not because I want people to run around and ban doing business with Israel. I don't think that's useful for the most part, but that's not the question here. The question here is, should we be binding disaster aid for people in need in the middle of a hurricane to whether or not they back the government of Bibi Netanyahu? Like, is that really what we're doing here? Are you trying to tell me that this is an America first policy? How? In what way? And this is what a lot of people said. A lot of prominent commentators, very popular right-wing commentators, noticed this problem. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire came in and said, this is clearly not America first, right? And many people, myself included, were saying, I don't want to see this, right? This is not how we should be doing business. Again, I am fine with punishing the left on DEI stuff. That's for America. That is pro-American. That is protecting the American people. But this last part, this is not protecting the American people. This is protecting Israel. Like, very clearly, okay? If you want to do business with Israel, by all means, I'm not going to stop you. I don't want to create some kind of thing where you can't do business or we all have to boycott. No, like, you have an individual conscience, and this is a foreign country. Honestly, I hope you don't think about foreign countries all that much. It would be nice if I never had to think about Israel again. That would be the best day in the world. Just don't ever have to talk about it. Don't have to hear about it. Go through an entire political cycle without hearing about pro or against Israel. What a beautiful day that would be. Where Israel's like Madagascar, right? Most Americans can't find it on a map. They can't spell it. They can't pronounce it. They don't care. They don't know anything about it. That would be so amazing. That is the future I am hoping for when it comes to American-Israeli relations, that I just don't have to worry about them at all, ever, again. But here we are, and they're being injected directly into my domestic politics. This isn't even like some kind of foreign policy issue. This is how aid should be distributed in the United States of America, where I live, based on whether or not I support some foreign nation. Again, if you were writing legislation saying you got to support Ukraine or we're going to cut disaster funding, everyone would lose their minds and they'd be right. But why is this different? How is this different? In what way is this different other than you like Israel? Like this, I'm just asking for equal weights and measures. I'm asking for what George Washington said in his farewell address. Don't hate a country so much that it destroys your own country, and drives you to make bad decisions, but don't love another country so much that it drives you to make bad decisions. And he said this specifically. He said, if you favor one nation over others, then what will happen is you will make all these other nations jealous, and you will confuse the interests of your own nation with that nation. And so you'll create bad relationships with other nations, while also ensuring that you create factions and division inside your own nation, depending on whether or not people back the favored nation under discussion. And so this is just action that is very clearly in the violation of like what our founders thought about foreign policy, how we should treat foreign nations. This in every way is a violation of how we should be doing business. Again, our own domestic policy now being dictated about how you feel about a foreign nation. It's gross, it's ugly, it's stupid. And there's just no reason that this should be going on. So, with all of this backlash, the Trump administration did kind of make a change here. So let me share the new updated version of this here real quick. So this is the updated version. You'll see the changes here. So the DEI language is still in here. We still have very similar language at the beginning here, but instead they've changed the last. We get D and E here instead. Federal anti-discrimination laws mean federal civil rights law that protects individual Americans from discrimination on the basis of sex, race, color, religion, and national origin. So we're getting the civil rights laws, kind of codified here. Illegal immigrants, mean any alien is defined in the statute, right? So you're not allowed to you're not allowed to discriminate on DEI. Basic civil rights law still matters. So great, right? It's been changed. The specific language of Israel has been removed. Fantastic, right? Makes sense. And that's really important because remember, we have leftists who boycott Americans all the time. You guys remember when they had the trans bathroom stuff and like they started passing, I think it was North Carolina was the first one to pass the anti-trans in your bathroom bill, protecting women and children from having like men cross-dressers in their dressing rooms, in their changing rooms, and in their bathrooms. And we had major American corporations refuse to go to North Carolina. I believe it was an NBA game, like some kind of NBA championship. Like they canceled what was supposed to be in North Carolina because they had a law they didn't like. So it was legal in the United States, still is, by the way, to boycott other American states. And of course, we see this all the time. We have when Florida passed the quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill. We had a number of different states, including I think California, issue don't travel orders for their government officials and don't do business, blah, 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 all this stuff. And so the direct boycotts state to state. So we're talking about domestic boycotts between states, between corporations and states, based purely on their attempts to protect children, right? Like leftists were boycotting entire American states, corporations were boycotting entire American states just because they wanted to protect children. And guess what we did about that? Nothing. You can boycott them all day long. You can boycott conservatives. You can boycott people for protecting children. It does not matter. You will not get in trouble, right? You'll be fine. You will still be able to do business, all that stuff. No problem. However, if you boycott Israel, you're going to get in big trouble. A foreign nation. You can boycott Florida. You can boycott North Carolina. You can boycott people for protecting children. But if someone doesn't like what's going on in Israel and they decide to take action, that's when the federal government is going to cut your disaster funding. Not because you boycotted Florida, not because you boycotted North Carolina, not because you were attacking states that were protecting children, because they wanted to protect Israel. That's wild. That's wild. People see that, guys. Like they see that and they notice that. Okay. It becomes too obvious. You're showing too much of your hand when you do this. Okay. We won't protect American states. We're not going to protect conservatives. We're not going to protect Christians. We're not going to protect American communities. We're not going to protect children, but we will protect Israel. Like, come on. What are you doing? Like, even if you're pro-Israel, you have to know this looks terrible. This looks terrible. And it's impossible not to notice that this has become a giant priority, right? It's impossible not to notice because we didn't get any of these legal regulations. They were threatening, they've been threatening colleges and their funding. Great, but only when it comes to Israel. They're threatening leftist states and their funding. Okay, but they're pairing all of the anti-DEI stuff with support for a foreign nation. They could have put in there, and you can't boycott other states because of their stance on child mutilation, or their stance on allowing troons inside women's bathrooms. You could have put all of that in there, but you didn't. Instead, you put Israel in there. People notice, guys, and you can't tell me that you're just doing that because we got to get that done to get the anti-DEI stuff done. Because the Trump administration dropped the language immediately. Like, just a few hours later, after the public backlash, they dropped it immediately. So the theory that this is necessary to push this, the idea that you have to push this or otherwise you just can't stop the DEI stuff, is complete bunk. It's obviously a lie because the Trump administration dropped it immediately. Well, maybe, right? Okay, so here's the next problem. Here's our next share. So this post came out after the new language was released from the Department of Homeland Security. I know, sorry, that one's a little small. The power went out and all of my stuff that was preset is now no longer preset, so stay with me here. So from the Department of Homeland Security, we get this tweet after kind of this stealth edit to the policy, right? And it says, there is no FEMA requirement tied to Israel in the current NOFO. Well, there was, so that's a problem. You can't just be like, well, I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's not there. I mean, it was there 10 minutes ago, but it's not there now, right? So we're all good, right? No, you kind of have to, you got to explain that one. You can't just walk that one out and walk it back and then be like, everybody's cool. We're cool, right? Don't get me wrong. I want to be clear. I want to reward the Trump administration for listening to people. Okay. I know there's a lot of voices. I know there's a lot of influence flying around in DC, especially in the White House. I know there are factions who are fighting over who and what to believe in back. Okay. So I'm not here to chide the administration. How could you ever, you responded. No, good. You responded. You changed. Fantastic. Right. But that one is a little blatant and you got to explain it. Okay. You can't tell me, that we just put that out there, but it's not there now and it's fine. No, why was it there in the first place? Anyway, it says no states have lost funding and no new conditions have been imposed. Well, they were gonna. Yeah, I understand that this was this didn't happen, but it was supposed to. That was the plan. So having a conversation about why that happened would be great. And I just want to say, I would like to talk to a Trump administration official about this. Okay. I would genuinely, it's not going to be hostile. I promise. Okay. I'm not going to be here screaming at you, but I genuinely want to have a real conversation. I think MAGA voters deserve to have a conversation about this. They deserve to hear why they thought this was okay. Why this was meant. Did an intern draft this one? Right. Was this handed over to a lobbyist somewhere? Was this the plan from the beginning? Did nobody hear that? I mean, you have to know what this sounds like when you draft it, right? So somebody should have done some proofreading here and said, I don't know if this one's going to fly, boss. So I would just like to have a conversation. What does that process look like? Why was this chosen? Why did we think that was necessary? Why was it rolled back? Why was it okay to roll it back? Was it necessary before? Is it necessary? And what's going on? I just would like to sit down. So please, Trump administration, if you would like to put an official on the show to have this discussion with me, I would love to do that. I think the American people deserve to know what's going on here. Again, I'm not trying to do a struggle session. I'm not trying to beat anybody up. I want genuine answers because I just don't think this is acceptable. We didn't protect conservative states this way. We didn't protect Christians this way. We're only protecting Israel this way. And again, very difficult not to notice that that's the case. A lot of people screamed at me for, disliking the war in Ukraine, right? But for the most part, conservatives were on board. They came around on this. I'm only bringing exactly the same criticism. I didn't want my money to go to Zelensky, and I don't want it to go to Netanyahu. I don't want my weapons to go to Ukraine, and I don't want them to go to Israel. I don't want my military deployed to protect the Ukrainian border, and I don't want it protecting the Israeli border. I want America and its armed forces and its money and its people to protect the United States. And I want them to do that across the board, in every conflict, in every situation. And so I just want to know, why were we doing this? What's going on? Please break it down for me. I would like to understand it. However, here's the post. It says, okay, we didn't put any of these conditions down. However, FEMA grants remain governed by existing law and policy and not political litmus tests. Well, but there was a political litmus test, very clearly. That was happening. DHS will enforce all unless you're telling me, of course, and here's where we get it, and I'll just read it. DHS will enforce all anti-discrimination laws and policies, including as it relates to the BDS movement. So actually, it sounds like we are possibly withholding funding for people who want to oppose Israel. Okay, why are there American anti-discrimination laws for foreign nations? If tomorrow Florida decided that it was not going to do business with any Chinese company or any other, which I think it should, by the way, and I think that's what we should be doing. We should be cutting China off. But if Florida said, we are no longer selling land to China, you can't, if you're a Chinese company or you're a Chinese national, you cannot own land in Florida. And we don't care what any other state says, that's what we're doing. Would it lose disaster funding? Is that discriminatory against China? And if it's not discriminatory against China, why is it discriminatory against Israel? Why is there no protection for China in our anti-discrimination laws, but there is for Israel? You can say, oh, well, China's an enemy and Israel's an ally. Well, I mean, we do a lot of business with China, so if they're an enemy, we're going about this wrong. But let's just use another example. I don't like what's happening to the British in the UK right now. The UK government is tyrannical. It is destroying the native people of Britain and in replacing them on purpose. It's allowing the rape of young girls by migrants that it continues to bring in and refuses to prosecute. And it punishes any English person who speaks out against that or tries to stop it. If I got all the people in Florida together and I said, okay, let's boycott the UK. We're not going to do business with the UK anymore because the UK is hurting its people. It's a tyrannical government. It doesn't have our values. We don't want to support it in any way. Would that violate the anti-discrimination laws of the United States? Like, why do our anti-discrimination laws protect foreign governments? Well, actually just one foreign government, because I don't think we'd have this problem with any other foreign government. This needs to be addressed. Like, you can't just throw this out here and pretend like this isn't happening. Like, you're saying it out loud. You're not hiding the ball. So, like, we need an answer. Why is this one government immune to any kind of criticism or any kind of boycott when I could boycott any other country in the world tomorrow and not have to worry about it? Right? I am consistent. I just want the same rules for Israel as we have for every other country. That's all. I want to be able to say, I disagree with what's going on in Ukraine and I don't want to support Zelensky and I don't want to send money there, and not be called a traitor or a liar or a Putin supporter or an anti-Ukrainian hater or something like that. And I'd like to be able to have people do the same thing for Israel if they choose without facing this kind of penalty. But it seems like the Department of Homeland Security is directly saying, actually, our anti-discrimination laws protect the government of a foreign country from American citizens. Doesn't seem good. Which is expressly grounded in anti-Semitism. Those who engage in radical discrimination should not receive a single dollar of federal funding. Again, very confusing, very concerning. Do not like what's going on here. Again, glad it got rolled back in theory, but then when we see a post like this, the question is, did it ever get rolled back at all? Or did you just change the name on the guideline and then intend to go ahead and continue to do it anyway? Because that's very concerning. I should be able to oppose DEI in the United States without having to also agree to having a commissar comb through the political beliefs of different cities and decide whether their foreign policy thoughts are violating the discrimination laws of the United States of America. It's a really weird thing, guys. Very weird for you to come out and frame it this way. Very strange. We need to stop doing this. Okay, this is stupid. This is stupid. It's ugly. It's gross. And it's not America first. I thought we were America first. I thought that was the whole thing, right? This is clearly not America first. So please, for the love of God, stop doing this. Stop doing this. It looks ridiculous. People ask very good and serious questions because they deserve to ask them when you're doing stuff like this. And you can't just shout them down, okay? You can't just yell names at them when you do this kind of stuff because people are eventually going to stop caring, okay? We all got over the being racist thing. Oh, it's if you ask about crime, it's racist. If you ask about poor educational performance, it's racist. We got past that. We can talk about that stuff now. Yelling racist at people doesn't work anymore when it comes to discussing this stuff. And that's going to happen with people's relationship with Israel at this point. You can scream anti-Semite all you want, but it's very clear a lot of people who don't hate Israel are asking legitimate questions about what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who hate Jews and hate Israel, and they're screaming from the top of their lungs. And obviously, the easiest thing in the world is just mix everybody together and be like, oh, everyone's an anti-Semite, get out of here. But that's exactly what you did with crime and education and everything else too, right? Oh, okay, there's like 5 guys over there who really hate black people, so we can't talk about crime statistics. Oh, there's like 10 guys over there who really hate Mexicans, so we can't talk about immigration. No, I'm sorry. Because the majority of people had real, legitimate concerns about crime, about immigration, about education. And the fact that it made some people of some races uncomfortable didn't stop us from having those discussions. Or at least they used to, but it doesn't now. And the same thing's going to happen here, okay? You can scream all you want. You can call people all the names you want. At some point, people are going to keep looking at what you're doing, and they're going to have legitimate questions about whether or not it's in the interest of their country. And it's okay to ask those questions. And telling people it's not okay to ask that question is only going to make them more and more certain that something sinister is happening, and with good reason. So if you want to dispel these rumors, if you're really worried about people having the wrong opinions and wrong thoughts about what's happening here, maybe, just maybe, you should think about the rules you're imposing and why you're imposing them and why people seem to be so outraged by them. Because I think there's some legitimate pushback here, and you can tell because the pushback came from across the spectrum. It wasn't just a bunch of crazy leftists. It wasn't just a bunch of pro-Muslim people who hate America. It was good, rock-ribbed, solid conservatives saying, wait, why am I removing disaster funding from my neighbor because of their position on a foreign government? I'm willing to push that edge when it comes to them discriminating against my kids and my family. I'm not willing to do that for a foreign nation. Sorry. America first, every time. All right, so let's take a look at our other topic real quick. Obviously, with the power outage, our time is a little weird here, but I don't know how long I was out, but we'll just dive into the story. We won't worry about the length of the show then. So the next one is this move here. Now, Jim Acosta is obviously terrible. However, he did do this recently, which is also terrible, but brings up some interesting issues. So Acosta here puts on, I don't even know where Jim Acosta is anymore. All these like mainstream media figures now just have like random podcasts that everyone watches. So he says, a show that you don't want to miss, blah, blah, blah. So an interview with Joaquim Oliver. He died in the Parkland school shooting in 2018, but his parents have created an AI version of their son to deliver a powerful message on gun violence. All right, so let's watch this real quick.
Would be for gun violence.
Get the volume up.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution. Joaquin, I would like to know solution would be. Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be
Well,
for gun violence?
for whatever reason, I'm not
Great question. I believe in a mix of
but
stronger
basically
gun
he just
control
says we
laws,
need more
mental
gun
health
control,
support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces
AI,
for
it's
conversations
very
and
bad. You can
connections,
probably just
making
tell
sure
from the
everyone feels
lips,
seen
from
and
what's
heard.
being
It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
from what's
I think that's
being
a great
pantomimed
idea,
there. You can
Joaquin.
tell that the AI is still very bad. The technology is still not great. If the sound was working, if the power hadn't gone out, you would hear. Actually, hold on. Maybe I can change this real quick. Try this one more time. Sorry about all this, guys. No, it does have always share tab audio on. Okay, I thought maybe that had gotten tripped.
Violence.
Great question.
Nope, still no good. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Again, only so much I can do when the power goes out. But but trust me, the sound is really bad. It's as bad as you think, along with the mouth movements. So obviously, AI is still very far off from mimicking, a loved one's persona, accurately portraying their speech, all these kind of things. However, a couple things. First, obviously, this is like insanely ghoulish. This is shameless. The fact that Jim Acosta would use this dead kid for the promotion of like his political position, and like have his parents like digitally resurrect this kid, do like digital necromancy to bring back their son to push his political agenda is horrible. The way that he talks to the AI is really insanely stilted and insulting as well. Obviously, very just morally gross, reprehensible behavior, and corny and stupid all at the same time. So like you're not even getting like some kind of convincing or compelling content. It's basically like I don't know. I'm going to show my age here for kids who didn't grow up with some of the 80s in their life. But Max Headroom, like the really cheesy 3D computer generated guy, like one of these first like computer generated personalities. It's a lot like that, where it's like insanely cheesy the way that they're talking. So like the mouth movement is terrible. The sound is terrible, and then Jim Acosta attempting to like pretend like this is normal it's all incredibly embarrassing and horrible and morally reprehensible. The parents, I try not to be judgmental of people who've lost people in this way, so I'm not going to rip on the parents too much, even though they never should have done this and never should have agreed to it. But I mainly blame Acosta for ultimately preying on their grief for the loss of their son. However, this does open up a deeper issue, right? Because as bad as the AI is here, as unconvincing as the voice and everything is, this is going to change. I know, you guys have probably already seen there are already better versions of this out there. There's already AI that already puts out better videos, completely fictional people created, and they seem very realistic. They speak in far more smooth tones, more natural speech. Still in the uncanny valley. Still clearly AI for most people who are looking for it, but much more convincing than this one. However, they're only going to get better, right? Like they're going to get the speech patterns down. They're going to get the facial patterns down. They're already pretty good, and they're going to keep getting better. They will become unrecognizable as AIs unless you really, really know what you're looking for. But far more concerning is the idea that like, we're going to bring back dead relatives through this technology. Because ultimately, it's not just going to be the facial stuff, right? Like, okay, I can see my dead loved one. They're walking around. They're talking. I can hear their voice. But it's also going to be the ability of AI to scrape the internet, right? It's going to start scraping your social media and pulling in the different identities that are out there online. They're going to pull in your Facebook posts. They're going to pull in your Twitter and your Instagram reels and your Snapchats. They're going to pull in any content that you've made, any videos that are out there on YouTube with you. And these digital profiles are going to get created because more and more people are cataloging a large amount of their life online. It would be hard to do with kind of the average, 40 or 50-year-old probably. But for kids who have had a cell phone, and not a great idea, but for kids who have had the cell phone since they were young and they've been making videos and they've been posting things, across the internet, and then they've been doing this for decades, that information is going to accumulate, right? And AI is going to be able to pull from those live videos, from the opinions and the mannerisms and all these things that are existing out on the internet. And once that happens, they're going to put together pretty convincing people. A lot of people will say, oh, AI is just not that big of a deal. It's not smart. It's not about AI being smart. This is always the mistake people make. Yes, it's possible we could get Skynet. Okay, that is a concern, but that's not the concern. The concern is that AI gets good enough at mimicking human behavior to where humans will take it as a substitute for human behavior. And when they do that, you're in a really bad place, because LLMs, the people say, oh well, they just tell you back what you want to hear. They don't think of anything new. They don't come up with anything new. They just tell you what you want to hear. But guess what? Every person with a dead loved one wants. They just want to hear what their loved one had said before, right? They're not going to be super discerning when it comes to like, oh, are you having original thoughts? Am I having a truly original conversation? No, they're just happy to see their dead loved one again. And let me tell you how dangerous that is, because I lost a wife young, right? And if I, if I had had access to a technology like this, not this is garbage at this point still, but what's coming and what will certainly come. If I had access to something like that, I don't think I ever would have moved on. I don't think I ever would have recovered, because you have that crutch that's there for you on a regular basis. That person is always there, in a sense. There's always something to go back to. There's always something to pine for. There's always something that's right there in front of you, replicating that experience. And that is going to one-shot people, man. That is going to destroy people who are at intense amounts of grief. You can't move past that when you have something like that talking to you, when you've resurrected a loved one in that way. It's impossible to grieve and move on in the human experience, whether we like it or not. I know it's a terrible thing to say. You're like, oh, I'll never forget this person. But to some extent, it's not so much forgetting the person in their totality, but their constant presence is no longer there. And so at some point, you learn how to live life without it. But if you have an AI that will just mimic that for, however long, then you never have that grieving period and that natural distance and space to move beyond that experience. And that is just horrible. It's horrible. And it's going to destroy people's lives, because, parents are going to lose children. People are going to lose spouses, parents, and they are going to live in a world where that virtual person is with them all the time. And there's plenty of sci-fi about this. I think Black Mirror had an episode like this. And there's a great like podcast that's kind of like a radio drama, one of those. I think it was called Afterlife, where like basically this company uses an AI version of this guy's dead girlfriend to blackmail him into doing all this bad stuff. There's a few other examples. I believe the Galactica, Caprica, the sequel to Battlestar Galactica, the TV show. It didn't do very well, but it also kind of had this premise where this guy's daughter died, but he could find a simulacrum of her in these programs. And I've talked about this a number of times when it comes to AI. It's the battle between the simulacra. Will you take the fake? Will you take the easy, simulation, or will you only stay around for the real? Well, with stuff like this, especially desperate people who have lost someone incredibly dear to them, they're going to chase that stuff, right? And there's not going to be much that stops them. Trust me, from experience. When you have this option and you are that devastated, you are going to avail yourself of it. And so it's a situation that I think is just terrible for society. And the fact that the very first thing that's being done with it is like not actually comforting parents or anything. It's pushing a political agenda. Just shows you how bad this is going to get. Because wait till it's every kid from Sandy Hook, or every kid from Parkland, or every kid from, whatever thing you're thinking of, hundreds, thousands of parents all living with simulations of the children they've lost, and the spouses and these things. This is going to be terrible for society. It's going to make people completely unable to move on and go through the natural grieving process that unfortunately is a terrible but real and essential part of life. And so I think unfortunately, I don't think we're going to stop this. I don't think that we're going to be wise enough to put our foot down and keep people from doing this. But I do think it's going to keep getting worse. And that is a terrible future, especially, again, when guys like Jim Acosta are just soullessly using this to push their political agenda. All right, guys, let's go to the questions of the people real quick. Looks like we got a decent amount. Principled Uncertainty says, in the UK, have money. Well, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate that. And again, sorry so much about what is going on in your country. He also says, get a Raspberry Eye and watch Mental Outlaws video on how to set up an unbreakable VPN. It's still legal for now. Forgive my spelling. My eyesight is crap. Okay, well, if there's a I know that VPNs have become a little bit of a hot topic in the UK because they are censoring. They're using digital ID and stuff to block a lot of what people can say online in the UK. The internet is in no way a place for free speech. They were already arresting people for specific types of posts, but now they're blocking people in general. I'm actually going to have someone on here. I believe it's next week to discuss part of this from the UK, so we can get the UK perspective. But looks like there's still options for VPN in the UK, and if you can do that, of course, avail yourself of that. But stay safe. I know it's the laws in the UK are shifting constantly, and they are not hesitating to throw people in jail for violating them. So, stay safe out there. He also says, I have no bias. You are all terrible. Now back to my family's problems. Yeah, that is exactly my response to a lot of this. You have to care about Israel. You have to care about Palestine. You have to care about Ukraine. You have to care about Russia. No, I don't. I don't care. I don't want to care. The only sense in which I care is you are invading my domestic politics. You are dictating to American citizens what they can believe and how they can act based on your relationship with a foreign power. Again, exactly what George Washington warned us would happen if we entered into this type of relationship. I would just like us to have equal treatment of all countries, which is to say we can hate them all if we want or love them all if we want. And really, you shouldn't be doing either. I would like to not think about foreign countries as much as possible. However, to the extent that we have to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this Israel stuff. People get insane about it. They get angry. They get fly off the handle. They scream all kinds of names at you. They try to cancel whatever. At this point, if you're directly, threatening disaster relief in the United States for citizens of the United States over this, I'm out of options, guys. You've left me no option. Okay. Like, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to sit here and pretend I don't see this? No one can. You got to stop doing it. You have to stop. Let's see here. Joe McDermott says, our far-right MAGA DHS is super concerned about radical discrimination. So how about caring about what happened to Cincinnati? Again, so many different examples where we could be using the power of the federal government to punish the left for hurting Americans. And right now he's talking about the beatdown that several people received during the jazz festival, I believe. I'm pretty sure that was Cincinnati. I talked about it here recently, where it was several white people who were beaten in that scenario. But we're not using that leverage, right? Maybe they will, but the point is there's a lot of leverage that could be brought against people who are hurting Americans, and instead we're caring about discrimination against a foreign country. Not a great look. Not what you were elected to do at all. So stop. Matt Greer says, how much longer can Israel interests dictate our foreign and even now domestic policy? Seems like this issue is coming to a head, and the young conservative base, it's unavoidable at this point. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? This is a generational thing. A lot of people were raised on the idea, dispensationalism in evangelical Christianity was very powerful. Obviously, we all saw Ted Cruz talking about how he ran for Senate to be the most powerful protector of Israel. Like, obviously, this is deeply baked into a certain generation in the United States, but up-and-coming conservatives just don't want to deal with this anymore. We want to serve America. We want to put America first, okay? And I think people are just fed up with it. That doesn't mean people want to hate another country or a people, but they're tired of having, obviously, our policies wrapped around this country. You can't issue a directive like that and tell me that you're not wrapping our domestic policy around a foreign government. It's not even a foreign nation. It's specifically a government, right? I'm not sworn to protect the government of Vladimir Zelensky. I'm not sworn to protect the government of, Keir Starmer. I'm not sworn to protect the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm sorry. Like, that's just not how this should work. And that's certainly not how a party, one that has especially been talking about how it's a nationalist focused party now. If we are nationalists, then we should be caring about our nation, and other nations only interact with us to the extent it's beneficial for us. But it's obviously not beneficial if we're cutting off aid, disaster aid. How does that benefit Americans? It doesn't, and everyone notices. Weird E-Curb says, wait, I don't have to support Islamic extremism just because I'm not a fan of Israel influence in our foreign policy. I'm confused. How does that work? Yeah, it's amazing. And the dumbest thing is, not only is this a charge leveled at people who are like, maybe I don't want Israel dictating, domestic policy as to who gets disaster aid. It's also obviously leveled at people who truly believe this stuff. There are unfortunately people who are on quote unquote the right who actually make this argument. Like, sorry, I'll just say it. I've heard Groypers make this argument. So we got to back Palestine. We got to, the Fuentes crowd. We got to back Palestine because they're against Israel. No, actually, you don't. You don't have to support like any foreign people who hate you, and they do. They do hate you. Like, you don't actually have to back either of these parties. There is no way. Like, I'm sorry, Islam is the enemy of Christianity. I don't want it in my country. I don't want Islamic politicians running for office here. I don't want us importing more Muslims, and I don't want the Muslims who are here to have any level of cultural dominance at all. You can call that whatever you want. I don't want it. It's not my country. It's not my culture. It's not my religion. I don't have to support these people. I don't have to put up with it. So no, I don't have to back, people in Saudi Arabia or, Qatar or whatever, Palestine. I don't have to back any of these people. I don't have to believe they're my friends. I don't have to believe they're my allies. I don't have to do any of it. You don't have to choose between foreign powers. This is the United States. In theory, we run the world. We should be able to choose us every time. We didn't have to choose foreign peoples. We shouldn't. Either way. Principled Uncertainty says, again, the AI and foreigners will destroy us. Good luck. Well, I'm certainly hoping that neither of those things is true, and working hard to make sure that neither of those things are true. But it is certainly going to be an uphill battle. I'm not quite that black-pilled yet. And Thimpler says, put libs in digital utopia lockers where their policies magically work far away from us. Not the worst idea, actually. I can kind of get on board with this. Like, all right, you want to be in the pod, you want to eat the bugs, put on the AI headset, waste away over there. Look, socialism works in over here. Great, fantastic. The Christian Muslim Alliance, that works over here. Good for you. Yeah, that works in your little digital realm. Good for you. Here in the real world, we're going to implement policies that actually work. We're actually going to put America first. We're actually going to take care of families. We're going to prioritize Christianity, and we're going to do all the things that will actually better our society. So here in the real world, we're put our policies into place, and then you can take your socialism and your like hatred of America and all that stuff, and you can just live in your little realm where all that actually works out for you. All right, guys, thank you for sticking with me through the inclement weather. Obviously, hopefully we do not have that problem going forward, but I'm glad we were able to get things back online and make this happen. And of course, if it's your first time on this channel, you need to click subscribe on YouTube, the bell and the notification, all that stuff, so you know when we're going live. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.